a special edition of Walking Digital Corridors. I think everybody knows me, the bearded sales guy. Today, we're talking about leveraging AI to 10x your prospecting efforts. And I am joined by a special guest today, Greg Wasserman, revenue generator, partnership builder, and people connector. Greg, do you want to say a few words about yourself?
Hey, welcome. For me, it's morning, so good morning to everyone that's stateside here. But background is running partnerships, uh, also in the podcast space. So consultant podcasting. I used to run 3 podcast listing platforms, and what I always thought from a sales standpoint was, if my company has a podcast or there's audio out there that I'm trying to reach a prospect, how can I use that to engage with the person? And so that's what I loved about how I can think about how do I repurpose content, build my brand, but also how do I engage with my prospect in a way that's authentic as opposed to emailing. So that's kind of what I've been doing with my career for the last few years.
Yeah, love it, love it. And in a world where this kind of zone of resistance for buyer is becoming higher and thicker, I'm a huge advocate for getting creative with our prospecting. And so before we kind of dive into things, I have to say I love your banner on LinkedIn. Life is about time and relationships. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, the full thing is life is about time and relationships. You've no clue where one conversation today will lead into the future. So if you start treating things as like a conversation today, I don't know where it's going to take me. And most of us in the sales world are like, I've got a goal to hit. I got a monthly quota, quarterly quota, whatever the case may be. So you're thinking very much like, I need to move this prospect down the funnel. But if you think more about relationship and go, what is this conversation? Buyers don't buy when you're feeling the desperation. They feel the connection, like you're engaging with them. You're building the trust. So if you think about it that way, then you're like, well, I don't know if Alex is going to be, I think there's a there, but I don't know enough about Alex and his business. But I just want to have a conversation. I want to open that door and go, Alex, whether my solution can fit for you or not is not the point of this. It is a matter of how do we build this? And I get an understanding. And so if you start doing that, especially as a salesperson and as a partnership, I start building those relationships with other companies and going, maybe my solution, while I thought was the right one for Alex, isn't. But Alex, I can go and tell you, I got 2 buddies that are companies that probably fit the services that you actually need right now. I'll make the introduction. And so I've now built the relationships with not only you as my prospect, my ICP, but also with existing companies that are friends with me. And so you're starting to think about all those relationships. You're thinking long term because maybe Alex is going to go like, oh, I really like Greg because he helps me. He helps me with what I need. And when I need something else, I'll come to Greg. And those are all those relationships. You don't know where that future is going to take you. So that's the way I think about it.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So, without further ado, let me bring up your slides because I think you're going to take us through a few of these slides first before we get into the crux of things.
Yeah, I mean, look, the whole point of this conversation is how to 10x your content using AI, and specifically, with an audience here and revenue generators and salespeople. Like, we'll focus on that because that is literally how I got into everything here.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of talk about how to use it, how to grow your brand, and get a kind of a sneak peek in terms of tools that you can use. So that's at the end of the day, AI is a tool to go. So I always like to start with OG Gary Vaynerchuk. Like, if your audience, my audience, doesn't know who Gary V is, well, we're living under a rock. But especially being in the revenue side of things, we all know Gary V. He's everywhere. He speaks his truth. He speaks honestly, but he also speaks about content repurposing. He takes one piece of content, he records himself, and he's figured out how to plaster that. And because of that, he's built his brand. Over time, he's just keep getting more. He started small and then went to different funnels or different distribution channels. So if you start thinking about Gary V, not only as a how do I repurpose my content, but also just doing the motion, just starting and then slowly going from there, the dominoes will fall down.
Yeah.
So I always like to start with Gary V there.
I
But I'll go
think,
for it.
sorry, Greg, you make a really good point there because, when we think about, some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today. I mean, we're on a podcast. We're kind of doing it. Many salespeople and marketing teams think they need this entire kind of production environment, professional environment to do something that is going to resonate with their audience. And actually, you just need to start, don't you?
Just hit play, and that's it. That goes to the next thing, right? So you just said a lot of people think this, and we're like, just hit play. Like 10xing your content's overwhelming. Like I don't have 28 hours in a day. I have quota to hit. I have my boss, unfortunately not a leader, but probably a boss breathing down me. Why aren't I making more calls? Why aren't I sending more emails? Like I don't have the time to do some of this stuff. So how am I supposed to 10x my content? I don't have the time. How am I supposed to maintain quality? I get overwhelmed thinking about impressions and engagement and going like, oh, no one likes me. So like, I shouldn't do this. My content's not good. How am I supposed to diversify my content? Should I be on Twitter? Should I be on LinkedIn? As we all know, from a revenue standpoint, be where your buyer is. So choose the platforms accordingly. How do I scale the engagement? Creating more content that resonates with the larger audience without losing that personal touch. Like I want to be niched down. So how do I make sure I do that? Workflow, like it's just me. How am I supposed to do this? But maybe I'm going to work with others. How do I adapt and engage with that? So like I get amped up just reading this slide because I'm like, hold on, take a breath. It is overwhelming when we think about it, especially with everything that you've got on your plate. But I always like to then go, what role does AI play? Because we know AI is not going away. It is a revolution. Quotes have been said, it's been the greatest revolution since electricity, others since the internet, name it, whatever it is. So you have to think about how do you use AI. And the key piece here is your brand. You're the authentic voice. So don't automate. Don't go to like ChatGPT. Don't go to other AI tools that aren't allowing you to sound like you, to look like you, to be your own brand voice, because that's what people want to connect with. I don't want to get on the phone with you and go like, you sound nothing like whatever it is you're writing, right? So you have to make sure that you are authentic.
Yeah.
So it goes into why you should be doing this. And this I love, because if you think about Gary Vee, like why you should be doing it, well, he's built a fortune basically in this regard. You talked about having a podcast, hit play, and how you're able to repurpose that. So why you should be doing it: volume, consistently regular content. Just think about your own. Like you look forward to every day to either a piece of content, whether it's a newsletter, whether it's a podcast that's coming out. You look forward to it. So why wouldn't you want your audience to engage with you and regularly have consistent content that's coming out, which then allows them to have the visibility and reach, right? So more content means you're engaging. If you get away from the impressions, like, oh, I'm only getting X amount of impressions or only X amount of engagement, goes back to my ethos. Life is about time and relationships. If I just put it out there, if I'm consistently putting it out there, I don't know where that content's going to live in the future. I don't know how that's going to engage in the future. LinkedIn just came out and said that they're going to start taking more of your content that's evergreen, that's getting good engagement, and keep surfacing that longer, as opposed to like, oh, I posted this a week ago, so if no one else is going to see it, it's going to have more opportunity. So if you're putting out good content, the algorithms are going to start being able to favor you.
Yeah.
Regardless if you have a website, if you just put on, whether it's whatever social platform it is, you're going to be able to get more, which is going to establish you as authority. As a salesperson, oh, go for it.
So sorry to jump in there, Greg, but I
Yeah.
find it's I find a big part of this, this content creation and developing one's personal brand is as much about sort of finding your rhythm and getting into that rhythm where you're creating a cadence of content that sort of keeps you top of mind and is at the right quality, rather than kind of worrying too much about the quality and then losing the rhythm.
It's flex the muscle. Once like we all in revenue roles are like, I've just got to get into rhythm. And once you get into that rhythm, you're like, oh, I'm in the flow and I'm in flow state. As soon as you start producing, and we'll talk about how do you produce it, but this is the whole thing, like why, it's going to start establishing you as authority. And that's what we want as revenue people. Like, I want you to know and trust me. Trust is the new currency. So if I'm posting regularly and getting engagement and being seen across not only my my peers, but of course the ICP audience I'm going for, that's going to start establish me now and in the future as I continue to grow. It's not about what company I'm at. It's about me and my brand and being able to establish that authority.
Yeah.
When you have more volume, that gives you more data. Revenue people, we like data. We like understanding those things. So it gives you more insights of who's engaging. One thing I always like to say is I can go ahead and take one piece of content and turn into 5 LinkedIn posts. I can think about those LinkedIn posts in in 2 different ways. It can be the same message targeted to a different audience, or it can be the same message but just repurposed in different words. Because just because I saw your post on Monday doesn't mean next Tuesday when you post and it's the same kind of message, I'm gonna see it. You don't know who's seeing on Monday and who's seeing next week. So you've got the ability to take one post and create it multiple different ways because you're not sure who's seeing it on which day. And that's
Yeah.
the way to just keep going, as opposed to like, hold on, I got to think about 20 different posts with 20 different pieces of content. Like, no, you can take just one piece of content and turn that into 20 different pieces. And we'll talk about
Yeah.
that. But that gives you the
Even
data.
even changing the title, because the title might be the thing that appeals to different people.
Exactly. Exactly. And that goes into then refining your targeting. Like data gives you the understanding of like which piece of content is working, which headline is working. Ooh, this headline seems to work. Let's use that.
Yeah.
Which opens you up to more monetization opportunities. That's what we want. In sales, we're all here to how do we make more money. So if you play that long game, just like I do from a relationship standpoint, but if you play that long game with your content, it's going to open you up because you're going to build your authority. Now you're going to get more people coming to you. You're going to actually get more job opportunities because people are like, oh, I like what this person's posting. They seem to know what they're talking about. Or you're going to get the actual sales that you're trying to go after. And then you can start using AI to automate and increase your engagement, build those relationships, build your relationships and your loyalty, improve your conversions, which we all want. So there's so much there in the last pieces. It allows you to stand out from a crowd. In this crowded space, why am I going with you? What makes you unique? Well, if you are consistently posting content, you're catering towards your right audience and you're speaking to them and you're not trying to sell them. That's the other piece here. You're not going like, look at my product, look at what I've got. It's like, no, what is the authority that you're putting out there? What is the reason that I should trust you and that you know what you're talking about, as opposed to this is what my company does or this is my white paper. Those are things that are a little tough. So that is why you should be using AI to 10x your content.
Okay. Great. Great.
So I'll skip these and go into the formula. How do you do this? So as you talked about, Alex, like you've got a podcast. You can literally take that audio form, load it through a tool, an AI tool like Castmagic. It's going
Yeah.
to spit out all this content for you, so you don't have to sit there writing it. Once again, I'm overwhelmed. I don't have 28 hours in a day. Greg, I'm trying to hit my numbers. So how do I do this? Then great. Take a piece of content, audio, video, run it through an AI tool, get all the content built for you. And now all you have to do is write a little bit, which you're going to do anyways. You're already writing emails. So why not build your authority and do all the reasons I just kind of told you about why you should be 10xing your content and then distribute it accordingly. So let's actually look at how you can do this in application.
Yeah.
Becomes a tool like Castmagic.
Cool.
So
Let's
let's
get into
go
it.
here. So if I take a step back, between my last 2 companies, I didn't understand as a revenue person, and I worked for a company and I saw B2B companies having a podcast. And I'm like, why is it that this company has a podcast and no one in their company is even promoting this podcast? Because you think about most podcasts, it is your host, someone from their company, and they're coming and they're bringing in their ICP, whether it's a thought leader that they want to try and sell to, it's someone else that's in the space that they're trying to connect with. Why is salespeople, revenue people, why aren't we saying, hey, look at this great show that so-and-so came on my show and talked about X, Y, and Z. Now I'm not going like, I'm not using my LinkedIn. I'm not using my emails to go ahead and go like, hey, here's what my white paper is. Here's what my case study is. Here's why you should buy from me. I'm actually going like, look at what so-and-so had to say. Now you're building your self-authority on the back of who your ICP is. It has nothing to do with your company. It is you and your thoughts and what you're able to do. So if we think about that, hold on. We're seeing my screen, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So Castmagic allows me to take any audio video file, and we've built in here these specific profiles. So I can take a podcast, and out of the box, I'm going to get social media promotions, timestamps, quotes. It's going to pull all these things, and I'll show you how we do this in application from a revenue standpoint, what it means. Meetings. I can start recording my meetings and now not worry about what the agenda action items. But we've all been in a meeting, we've said something smart, and we're like, who wrote that down? What did I say? I'm like, Alex, what did I say? And Alex is like, Alex is like, I know I was listening. Like, I heard it. I just can't regurgitate it. So
Yeah.
you can start recording those thoughts. Let's take our sales calls and start throwing those and record those and get all of your insights out of it. So let's look at what this looks like in application. You can have many spaces in Castmagic. And if we look at, oops, where's my phone? So how do I get content in? I can go find a YouTube video. So maybe your ICP, maybe there's a person you're trying to go after has been on a CNBC or a BBC recording. Maybe they've been on a podcast. Maybe they've just done an interview with someone else. Well, let's go ahead and bring that piece of content in here, and then let's start extracting the information. Or what I love to do is I use our iOS app.
Yeah.
And
I love this.
And so I will start recording my thoughts. So what you're looking at here right now are literally thoughts that I've had. And as revenue people, we have lots of thoughts. Whether there are frustrations with something, whatever the kind of content you want, like how do I structure that into it? So I had this conversation with someone. Actually, here's a great one. I love my job. I literally created a minute and a half kind of thought about like why I love my job. And then out of that minute and a half, it gave me 10 titles. Great. So those become my headlines that I could use for my LinkedIn post. It gave me 10 questions. It gave me a LinkedIn post. It turned that into a newsletter, turned into a tweet thread, threads by Instagram. And then I had the ability to create all these other prompts that I can now create more pieces of content. So if I wanted to post once a month, I at least have one post. But
Yeah.
I'm able to take that 1.5 minute thought about why I love my job and turn it into 5 pieces of content. And now once a week, I'm able to literally talk about that.
Yeah.
Or
I think there's a great use case here. So I provide social selling training, and we kind of get to the content creation module, and that's when people are like, oh God, I don't know what to write. I'm no good at writing. And I've been saying now, well, what question is on the tip of your customer's tongue that you can answer? And ask yourself that question and just record yourself answering it. And you'll be amazed within that minute or so answering that question, how much valuable content that you have that your customers now want to hear.
I love that. Like that is so true. Like if you are trying to answer, like if you know what are the questions my ICP wants, just record. Just record.
Yeah.
Record. I don't know how to answer that. No, just record the thought and let this then create it into a structure for you.
Yeah.
Don't have to worry about I sound stupid. No, this is going to make you sound smart. This is literally your thoughts now created. But if you're like, Greg, like I don't have thoughts on this, like you do, then great. Bring in another pieces of content. So
Yeah.
where was this?
Hey, I didn't mean to take you off track, but
No, you're right. Like I love the iOS app because as a seller, this was literally it. I'm like, how do I answer? Or maybe I get off of a call and I'm like, all right, what was the objection? How do I learn from this? I'm just going to record my thoughts right now and have that structured, and then have it now give me insights that I could pull from it. So this is a conversation between you and you guys that we pulled in here. So it was a 30-minute conversation you guys were having about rethinking the role of BDR. So maybe your ICP is like, I want to talk to other BDR people, or I'm trying to engage, or I want to be known in the BDR world. I want to establish myself as an authority in the BDR world. Great. I bring in your conversation as you guys talk about this, and then the AI content then turned this into all this content. What I love is it turned it into 10 questions. So now I can go ahead and start posting on your LinkedIn, maybe going like, oh, Alex talked about BDR stuff. I want to be associated with Alex. I want to be known in the BDR world because he's talking about that. And go, hey, Alex, how has the role of BDR changed in 2024, and what factors have contributed to this shift? And I can post that. Or maybe I got my own answers. Take out my app and answer the question there. And now I've got a piece of content that I can go ahead and post and be able to engage and go, this is what I think about this. Or what are the challenges associated with current approach to measuring BDR performance? What alternative metrics could be more effective? Well, that's a good question. Now, the difference here is I can go to ChatGPT and go, what are the 10 questions to ask about, the rethinking the role of BDR? But now I'm literally taking a thought leader, Alex, and going like, great, give me this insight so I can engage with Alex. It is Alex's thoughts, my thoughts now either record it, or I'm just posting these questions because I know Alex knows the answers to these. And Alex, I'm literally baiting him to answer these things because he's already talked about it. And so he's like, oh, Greg's now engaging with me. He's asking a really good question. Great, let me do that. Think about how you could do that with your prospects or whoever else you're trying to talk to. So I've now got quotes. Like, once again, back to my struggle when I was selling and I had companies that had a podcast. I'm like, why wouldn't you pull out a quote that someone said and going, hey, this is what Alex had to say. It's more enjoyable for the BDR because you're able to have conversations. Let's see here. The value of industry knowledge, and actually you end up finding you learn, or for my case, you end up finding you learn more about the industry. You learn kind of more about the hurdles, pain points that they're facing in many companies similar to them. Great quote. Let me post that as my LinkedIn, going like, great. I read this great quote by Jensen Abbott and about the BDR, and I post my own little thoughts on it because I record them. You're piecing things together. It's really easy to do, and now you're really building out your authority, you're building volume, and you're flexing that muscle.
Yeah. So why don't we switch gears? Because this is a great example of how you're using Castmagic, how sales reps can use Castmagic. You know, how I've kind of loaded, or you've loaded one of my podcasts in here. But there are many sales reps out there that are, perhaps thinking about the word prospecting and thinking, well, prospecting's just to open new doors, isn't it? What about opening existing doors wider? What about closing doors? And I use that analogy with doors, like we think about sales, opening new pipeline, managing pipeline, and closing pipeline. But if we are, and you and I have talked about this before, what if we're trying to get in touch with a hard to reach CMO? We know they're a key influencer, potentially the economic buyer. We've got conversations rolling within an organization. What could we do to try and get in front of them in an intelligent, credible way?
Organic way. I love the I would say organic. So here we go. We found Olivier Kruger, the CMO for Lufthansa. So
big German airline for those
big airline. So I am ultimately trying to sell. Let's imagine I'm trying to sell to CMOs, and that is my ICP, and he is a target that I would love to talk to. But while he's a target I would love to talk to, I want to talk to the people that he's connected with too, because those would be potentially prospects of mine. So I found a recording of an interview he did, 12-minute recording.
Yeah.
we actually go to,
I think it was on YouTube, if I recall.
found
We
it
just
on YouTube. Yep.
searched his name. I think we even searched Lufthansa CMO, and he came up. We weren't sure of
Exactly. So
his
it's
name.
here. We've got Kruger. Here we go. We can actually go and see what we actually pulled in. Here we go. Literally found the World Aviation Festival. I mean, imagine a place where if I'm trying to reach the aviation world even more, found him 7 months ago talking to someone. Brought that in here. Oops. Brought that in here, and it was great. Now what do we do with that? So we got recordings, back to it.
And it's as simple as copying and pasting the
The
YouTube
link.
URL.
Yep. All I did was import, paste it in here, and then all I had to do then was label my speakers. So I just had to figure out who was Jess and who was Olivier. And now I've got a bio. Great. Like if I needed to understand more about who he is, it's already telling me based on what he's described of himself on that recording. Great. But questions. Now I got 10 intelligent questions. In what way is Lufthansa Group leveraging technology to better understand its customers? And how does this approach differ from traditional marketing methods? Well, if I know that's a problem I could solve, and this is literally a question that is coming straight from the conversation he's had that he's answered, these are great things. I can go like, I can start using this to answer this, record my conversation, engage with him. Or I can now start taking his quotes. So it's pulling out quotes. By continuously monitoring the results, we'll be able to improve over time and go to a deep level of understanding based on the prepared customer data. We then build customer segmentation to understand the value. So I can take that quote and put that as my LinkedIn post and going, I love how the Lufthansa Group and Olivier is thinking about this. This is then I give my little 2 cents on what that quote has to do. So I'm taking his knowledge, I'm taking his voice, adding my 2 cents to things. But if I need to know, like, what is a LinkedIn post, I can start now extracting. So I've got the ability in a tool called Magic Chat to start going like, think about this as ChatGPT built in. What would I want to extract or what would I want to write? Write me a LinkedIn post on how to go sell to Olivier based on this conversation. I can do that. I can ask it like, hey, write me a cold email to go target Olivier based on what this conversation said. I can now go ahead and use his words, his thoughts, and have this write content for me, a plethora of content going back to the volume and data and understanding that I can now not only engage with him, but his network, because I can now talk to him.
Yeah.
He's posting regularly on LinkedIn, so I see that. I can tag him on LinkedIn. All these pieces now allow authentic brand building and conversation.
Yeah, just imagine how how you're going to stand out if you're using his insight and replaying that to his team and showing that you're aligned with the strategic direction that he's going with Lufthansa. Yeah,
And the
yeah,
other one, so I know a lot of in the revenue world, Gong is a great tool that people get their calls recorded and so forth. So if you don't have Gong, we've got a lot of people in sales. So we've got these customer discovery and sales calls. So I can take a call and run it through that. So
Mm.
I literally
So it's
did,
integrated.
say it again.
Is Gong integrated into Castmagic?
So Gong would be a competitor. It would be like
Okay.
if you've got Gong, then great. Like you're at that level, that volume. I get it, But we've got a lot of sales organizations that can't afford the price of Gong that are using Castmagic to try
Okay.
and analyze and understand. So they record those conversations and over Zoom or however they do, import it in here. So a good example, where was it? So. Is that it? Yeah. So I recorded actually this one. So I had a conversation with this lady. She had all this feedback about the product and trying to understand what her objections, what her struggles were, and everything else. So took the call, labeled, and now it's like customer pain points. Based on the customer call, the 5 biggest pain points that Alexa had are, there we go. Gave me exactly what her pain points are. How do I solve it? What are the customer's needs? What does our solution provide based on what I said? product considerations, like what we have to do to improve the product, or analyze what she said she needs from us that I could. What's her buying process? Who are competitors? It's literally analyzing all those pieces. So I can look at, how do I use my iOS app and record my content, record my thoughts, and put out content? How do I bring in other pieces of content like Olivier's, and how do I target my ICP and my audience and build branding there? Or how do I analyze my calls and start getting a better understanding of who my audience is, how do I sell them, and on my next call, what I could do better.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Cool.
that is how I leverage Castmagic as a tool. But also, the one last thing I'll say is, I take my coaching calls, and I could take sales calls. I could take any kind of calls, and I use our feature called Pages. And Pages now allows me to extract whatever it is I want from multiple calls. So how do I now piece together, especially if I'm an enterprise seller, 3 different calls or 3 interviews that Olivier's done, and go, great, now write me an email sequence based on these. So I literally took these 5 calls. I'm like, write me a cold email sequence to go target this person, to go sell more. And it wrote me that based on calls that I'm bringing in here, because or not calls, based on recordings, because it's now able to put together what those recordings are. So I can start building my brand, do more email prospecting, and going back to the overwhelming, there's not 28 hours in a day. Content's already up there. So let's go ahead and use that to help me, as opposed to, how do I go to Lavender and write a email? Well, now you can go ahead and write the email because it's writing it for you based on what this person's already said.
Yeah. And does Castmagic listen to the actual call, or are you uploading an MP3 or an MP4?
You're uploading it, yeah.
Okay.
So right now it would be using like a Zapier integration and bringing that in, or uploading it, drag and drop. So if we look at how a call or how a recording gets in here, you click import, so I can go ahead and get the file, YouTube, Vimeo, Reel, TikTok. I can go find their podcast and bring it in here, or I can drag and drop and bring that recording in directly.
Yeah. Got it. Cool. So, shall I share with our audience how
Your
I use
turn.
Castmagic? Yeah. Okay. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Working sort of on the fly. I'm going to have to pull that down so I can see what I'm doing, and then put that back up there so it looks as though I'm looking at the camera. There we go. See my screen. So yeah, so I guess obviously I run a weekly podcast called Walking Digital Corridors. Typically it's on a Thursday morning, me and my two boys, although Jensen wasn't well this morning. Get well soon, Jensen, if you're listening. And we try and keep it relatively short. It's anywhere between 15 and 30 minutes. Now, I'm not saying every salesperson must have a podcast, although I do recommend it, even if it's just a short chat with colleagues, with customers, with partners, just, sharing insight. And it really isn't that difficult when you're using something like Restream, which is what we're using today, to actually broadcast that conversation live. And if you do that, I find that, but based on what we were talking about earlier, kind of just hit play. You kind of you start doing this stuff, you hit play, and then all of a sudden you've had a 15-minute conversation, and then you've got 15, 20 pieces of content that you can use on social media that will help emphasize, amplify, support the development of your personal brand. And so, if I kind of walk you through the process, we'll have this 15-minute chat on a Thursday morning. Literally, the first thing I do is I download the MP3. In fact, I don't even download it. Well, okay, technically I do download it, and then I drag the file over to Castmagic. I mean, it really is that easy. You just drag the file over to this square here, and then it kind of loads in the background. I mean, I use a couple of other tools as well. So then what I'll do is I'll open up Spotify, and so the MP3 I'll dump into Spotify as well, and Spotify is actually connected to Podpage. So the Walking Digital Corridor podcast is also on its own website that is hosted on Podpage. So when I've dragged the file over to Spotify, and I've then used Castmagic and so if I click on this morning's, where is it? How many stakeholders should I engage? Clicking on the AI content here, I'm then pulling in the summary for Spotify. Where are we? Have I gone past it? I think I've gone past it.
So use the jump button. You can use the jump button in the future. Use jump, and that will take you directly to whatever prompts you've already got built in there.
Perfect. Every day's a school day. So then that'll help me write the summary card, the show card for Spotify. That then connects with Podpage, and then Podpage, I'll go and do some SEO stuff in Podpage using the content that Castmagic has created. And then that makes my podcast available to my listeners on the website as well. What I also do is jump over to my Substack as well. And I don't know if you're seeing this as I'm jumping across. I don't think you are you?
No, I only see you got to share the window as opposed to, yeah.
Okay, how can I do that?
It's sharing, instead of a tab, it's sharing the window.
Yeah.
Or the entire screen.
Share. Where's the share gone? Share screen. Okay. Forget it. It's don't think it's, let me stop sharing.
Yep, stop sharing, then reshare.
Okay. The joys of doing a live demo, hey? Okay, let's try this again.
Well, you're doing that. The other thing I like to say is record your conversations. Like, a joy, even if you I don't have a podcast, but you can tell your prospect, hey, I'm going to record this because I want to get insights. It's have a conversation. So don't even need, but if you wanted to go cheap and just go look, I'm just going to record this Zoom, I'm going to record this, and I'm going to put it out there so other people can have it. Your conversations are key, and your audience, meaning the person you're talking to, is going to go I'll talk to you because I know you've got a platform, you're putting out this. This is the power of podcasting. This is the power of just having a platform, as opposed to I'm calling you to talk to you to sell you. It's no, I'm calling you to have a conversation, think about a long-term relationship, and I'm going to then use that as content for both of us. People love that.
Yeah. Brilliant. Right. I figured it out now.
Yeah.
So didn't realize you couldn't see the fact that I was showing you Spotify. So I'll basically create the Spotify or the episode in Spotify. Spotify is talking to Podpage, which will then show the episodes in on the actual Walking Digital Corridors website. What I'll then do, and I'm kind of one step back, sorry, I'll take the description that Castmagic has automatically created from the transcript that I've loaded and put that into both Spotify and Podpage. And what I really like is it helps with the SEO as well. And so I'm conscious of the search engine optimization when I'm creating the show card for the for each episode in Podpage. And then I'll do something similar in Substack. So I've created a Substack, and here you see this morning's episode, uh, and uh, and so Substack is really, they call it a newsletter site, but it's so much more than just a newsletter. But I'll load the podcast in here, and then I'll create a newsletter of the podcast, and Castmagic gives me that newsletter content here, so I don't have to sit and write the content. I mean, I do kind of tweak it and edit it, but then I'll copy that content and then just paste it over into Substack, and here it is. And then I'll send that out to my subscribers.
Hold on. So you
And
bring up a good point. I forgot. This is all editable. So it's great. Like, we'll generate this content for you. Now you can go ahead and edit it. So it's your words. You're just editing it to AI. So instead of writing a lot of pieces of content, let's just go ahead and now edit pieces of content as opposed to, and now as a salesperson, like, all right, how do I build my authority? Just record those conversations. You're like, hold on, now I've got all these articles that you're creating and building authority that way that people can see what I'm talking about. I love this, Alex.
yeah, yeah. And then I did a similar thing with LinkedIn. So I took the LinkedIn post, which is here as well. There's the LinkedIn post, and then I tweaked that for my audience and posted the podcast on my LinkedIn page. And there's us, look, live, which here today. And what else? What else do I do? I mean, there's tweets. So I do have like a tweet cycle. So this will go into a different track, library of tweets, and then a platform called Buffer, and I'll load the tweets into Buffer, and that will just schedule the tweets to go out every day. And then finally, what I do is I'll take the MP4 and I'll dump that into a tool called Opus Clip, and that will create 10 or 15 video clips of the podcast, the 15-minute podcast, which I know Castmagic are kind of moving towards. They're moving in that direction, right? So I can do everything all in one place.
Yeah, you can create your quote cards. You can take an audiogram, and pretty soon I can do video overlays, and so things that matter from a visual standpoint. So yeah, there's a lot more from a visual standpoint, but right now very heavy on the text space. But as a seller, like, that is a great piece. Like, how do I just create content from either all these different streams that we're discussing and just get in the habit of doing it?
Yeah, and from a 15-minute conversation, live conversation that was broadcast on through Restream on LinkedIn and Twitter and my other socials, all of a sudden I've got a LinkedIn post, I've got a newsletter, I've got tweets, and I've got video content that's going out, which is, it's a couple weeks worth of content. And for some companies, they've got a marketing team doing that. That's what I love about Castmagic. It's just me.
Goes back to, there's not 28 hours in a day, and so how do I get this done? As a seller with quota, with all these things, I'm building a brand. And if you can think beyond just how do I sell, but how do I build my authority long term, that brand building of your authority goes very far, and you'll get more sales because of it.
Yeah. Brilliant. So I've noticed that the screen format has changed. I will figure out how to change that back. I think that kind of brings us close to the end. Are there any more thoughts that you want to share with us, Greg?
I think I've kind of like hammered in the idea of like why you should be using AI to 10x your content, why you should even be using and creating content in the first place, how to easily create content as a seller, and the value, whether it's my ideas that I'm recording, whether it is pulling in my ICP or other people's content that I want to go ahead and repost and edit, how I can start thinking about automating multiple pieces of content from one idea, one post, one video. These are all things that are going to build your your authority. It's going to help you close fit quicker. It's going to help you expand your reach. It's going to get you new jobs potentially if that's the avenue you want. But like now people start knowing who you are as opposed to there's nothing on your social. And we live now in the world where it's all about trust. And if I don't see content, or think about it, how many times do you send an email out to a prospect and then they come back to your LinkedIn and you're like, ooh, this person's seeing me. Great. I know they looked at my email. But there's nothing on your LinkedIn. You're not posting content. You're not an authority. They're going to go like, oh, this is just another seller trying to sell me on this something, as opposed to, oh, this guy has views. He understands my industry. He understands what I'm trying to achieve. I will talk to this guy because it sounds like this guy or girl is doing the right thing.
Yeah. And it doesn't take a long time. It only takes it takes as long as you want it to take. For me, it's about an hour and a half a week to do what I've just described. So I don't have to work 28 hours a day, just 24. Cool.
Here, I'll show another idea. So if you're like me, I'm like, great, I could talk, but I am not the greatest writer. So this will write for you. But if there's post, so if you want to share my screen here, I'll give you some other examples. So
Okay. Here
you've got the ability to create your own prompts, but you also have the ability to take other people's content and make that your own. And what I mean by that, beyond what I've described, is I found this guy's LinkedIn post. And I'm like, ooh, I love the format of this LinkedIn post. I can't write like that. It's going to take me too long to write like that. But I want what I say to look like that. So using a section called content sample, I pasted that in here. And then I just reversed engineered what the prompt was. What did he actually do? How do I describe what he did? That is my prompt. And now every piece of content I run, every thought I say, we go look at this. Every thought I say, where is it? It is structured. There's Joe. It is now structured as Joe. I'm like, all right, this is what I thought. Now it is structured in a way I can just copy that and paste it into my LinkedIn platform. Or I got Jeremy's, or I got Tom's. So if you are trying to figure out, you probably follow other sales revenue people. You maybe follow other creators. And you're like, I like what they do. It's enticing. So take that content, paste it in here, reverse engineer. Now your words will match that format.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Automate, automate, automate.
Yeah. Yeah. Automate in a way that isn't making you sound like a robot, though. It's just amplifying your personal brand.
100%.
Yeah.
So are there any questions here?
No, I don't think so. But where can people find you, Greg? If people want to find out more about you, where can they find you?
I live on LinkedIn. That's where I'm at right now. Literally before this call, I was talking about how do I get my own website. So working on that. But right now, I live on LinkedIn. I'm posting consistently. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't, but it runs the gamut of kind of what I'm posting about. But I want to make sure, look, there's no action there's no change without action. I say this wrong every time. There's no change without action. So everyone that's listening and in the recording, I want to be able to give you guys access to this. Like, go play.
Yeah.
This isn't a sales conversation. This is ultimately, how do I get you to think about how to use AI? But let me give you access to Castmagic. So if you want to put up the screen, I will go ahead.
Yeah.
Special offer. The way it works is it's minutes based. I got 300 minutes. I'm going to give you, it's $39 a month. I'll give you a month free. I don't know if we're able to put in, but there is the link and the promo code
that's on the post. That's on the LinkedIn post. If anybody wants the link.
So there you go. But like, play around with it. It's also community driven. So the nice thing about the SaaS platform is you're around 1,300 other people. and growing. Like we have a Slack community that you can go in there, learn, engage with. I lead all the trainings, so I will literally help you do this because I want you to be successful. I want more salespeople to build their brand and understand the value of how to content and repurpose. So please try it, test it out,
Yeah. And
and I'll help you.
there's the link on the screen, just in case you cannot find the LinkedIn post or you're watching this recording later on. Get.castmagic.io and the little code at the end there. Good. Greg, thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you on the show. It's been a workshop, really. This isn't just a presentation. This is a workshop. Hopefully people are coming away having listened to this, watched this, and they can put some practical ideas into practice today to improve their prospecting.
100%. I mean, look, this is what I love about you and your content. Like you and I gel on social selling, on content creation, and going like, you have a platform, you have a podcast. I don't. So what do? I'm just able to find other ways to create my own content, thoughts, and so forth. And that's where I think the audience here, everyone that's listening, understands. I got to do this. I just gotta do it, and let me give you the access to it.
Nice. Thank you very much. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, evening, weekend,
Yeah,
and we'll see you next time. Take care,
sounds
all.
great.